So with posting, right, I would challenge people instead of worrying about what to post, if you want to do something with posting, if you don't have a quote unquote big following yet, what you can do this on Facebook, LinkedIn, or both, or other social media, spend 3 minutes a day, set your timer, go to 3 posts on your newsfeed, give them a like and a comment. Okay. It's called 3 by 3 by 3. What that does, it gets you more exposure. It gets you more eyeballs on your profile. It builds relationships, and you don't have to figure out what to post, right? So 3 by 3 by 3. If you're wondering what to comment, at the most basic level, it's acknowledging the post and then asking a question, right?
Welcome to the Real Estate Vibe Show. I'm your host, Vinki Loomba, and today I have a very special guest with me. My good friend, he's a celebrity, Yakov Smart. Yakov is considered to be the leading expert when it comes to attracting high net worth investors and raising capital online. He is the author of Disrupting LinkedIn and a sought after authority by top real estate entrepreneurs across US and Canada. To date, Yakov's innovative strategy and systems have resulted in tens of millions of private capital raised to fund real estate deals. And today we'll discuss how to raise more capital and find high net worth investors on Autopilot. Welcome, Yakov, to the Real Estate Vibe Show.
Hey, thank you for having me, Vinky. Really happy to be here.
I'm so excited I'm here with you today. Wow. So before we get started, let's talk about your background. Can you tell me how you become what you are today?
Yeah, so it's a great question. We could probably spend a few days on it. I'll give you like the 60-second snapshot, all the juicy details. So growing up, I always knew that I wanted to have my own business. I was always kind of fascinated by psychology and the way it worked and the way people communicated. And so I got into the online space. I got into social media actually way back, in I think late middle school, early high school. That kind of tells you my start on social media started on something called MySpace, which some people will remember.
I know.
My first attempt at marketing online, I always joke, was trying to hit on girls. Right, that was my first sort of stab at it on MySpace. And so, been on social media for a while. And when I was in college, I went to school in Southern Georgia, grew up in Atlanta. I started to get really fascinated by the online space. Back then, influencers weren't really a thing. The idea of working from home and making money from home wasn't as much as mainstream of a concept as maybe it is today. And so my first project in the online space, I actually wrote an ebook. A lot of people don't know this, about how to succeed in college, and still actually on Amazon. And that was my first kind of stab at figuring out, okay, how can I sell something online, get people who don't know who in the world I am to buy this thing and put myself out there and start building a brand. And of course, there was a lot of failure along the way. There was a lot of learning. But once I got started. And then fast forward a little bit, I was living in Vegas at the time, and I was working in software sales, and I was also using LinkedIn as part of that role for lead generation. And then I started meeting small business owners and, telling them what I was doing. They started asking me how it worked. And I started, taking on clients kind of serendipitously. And then built a pretty nice business out of that. Wrote the book you mentioned, Disrupting LinkedIn. And so what I would do is I would go across the country, and, I've been places across the world, actually, like Australia, doing speaking engagements, seminars, teaching people basically marketing, how to use online to find high-end clients. And then 2020 happened, and the in-person stuff just it just kind of went away. And that's when, before that, I had a few real estate syndicators reach out. They were curious. They said, oh, maybe this can work with finding investors. But that was really when I started to focus and work with, where today, we only work with the real estate entrepreneurs and other types of capital raisers on using online marketing strategies and automation through LinkedIn and through some other lead sources as well, to build relationships one-to-many and build trust at scale. So what we do at Investor Attraction Academy is we show people, and we actually build a lot of the systems for them, which is a really neat thing for a lot of people, because there can be such a huge learning curve, how to go out there, establish credibility, build trust, and continue to add investors beyond their current network so they can scale more of their capital raising. So that's where I'm at today.
Wow, that's a great story. I love it. So I'm going to step back a little bit. So first, you initially started, I recall reading somewhere that you used to be an e-commerce fulfillment consultant before you started this your Investor Attraction Academy, right?
Yeah.
So you were already in the space doing your magic, I would say it, in the internet space and in the information technology. So how did those skills transfer into this current role, whatever you're doing now?
Well, they were essentially marketing and sales skills. And it all comes down to using this thing called the internet to build relationships, right? The best way to simplify it is, what is marketing? It's building relationships, doing it at scale, and also standing out and cutting through the noise. So the skills of relationship building, putting myself out there, understanding what do people experience online and what do people experience on the receiving end of a pitch, right? A lot of people, especially in capital raising, will sit down and try to come up with the perfect pitch without giving it much thought. Hey, well, who's on the receiving end of this? How does it feel? What questions are they going to have? What's going to resonate with them? What beliefs do they have that may be limiting them from investing or even looking into, passive investing or alternative assets? So that skill of empathy, it's taken me, and it's still developing, of course, it's an ongoing journey, right? No one's perfect. I'm learning every day, which I'm very grateful for. That skill of empathy, I think sometimes, when we start out in marketing online, especially in investor attraction, we just want the magic bullet. We want to almost like force our message down people's throats. And what I've realized, and a lot of what we teach and share, a lot of what our clients implement now is more based on empathy and understanding what's the specific angle for that person, what's their mindset, how can we meet that person where they're at, and then take them on this journey where they end up, ideally creating a lot of passive income, having great returns, having a great investor experience, so that they're also investing again and again and telling more of their friends.
Great. So you're talking about marketing. So let's talk about that. So how the online marketing is different than in person, because everybody knows you need to have a brand. You need to have some kind of marketing skills to market yourself in a way so people resonate with you, they connect with you. So if you can shed some light on that.
Yeah, so online it's more concise. So in person, let's say you go to a conference, you meet a guy, you're talking to him. He's not just going to run away unless he's just completely rude, right? If you start talking like 5 seconds in, he's not just going to turn his shoulder and dash away from you. Online, he will, because online there's more stuff competing for his attention. So you have a very precious moment to grab someone's attention. I talk about something called premature storytelling. A lot of people focus on, how do I tell my story? How do I create my brand? And there's a lot of great stuff out there on it. But until you grab someone's attention, until they know what's in it for them, they don't care. They don't care about the story. You could have the best story in the world. It's just going to go on deaf ears, right? So that's what the biggest difference in online. We also have to understand we want to be in the right places, right? A lot of people think they need to be everywhere. And it's just not true. You don't need to be everywhere. It's almost impossible to be everywhere and do it well unless you've got a huge team, a lot of resources. I'm talking tens of thousands a month that you're putting into marketing. And even then, it's easy to become scattered, right? So the other thing I'll say about marketing that a lot of people don't understand is there's tremendous leverage. There's tremendous leverage in automation. And marketing, this is something that a lot of people need to really hear, isn't an expense, it's an investment, right? Just like investing as an LP, let's say in a deal, or even being a GP, you're making an investment, right? Marketing is an investment too. I would arguably say that most of the time it's a better investment than a specific real estate deal. The ROI is higher, the long-term play, especially in this world of capital raising. But what a lot of people don't see is that marketing is an extension of trust building and building relationships, and also establishing your credibility and getting people to kind of feel you and know who you are.
But the question comes, when you're doing branding, or you're branding yourself a certain way, you're connecting with the people that you do not know over the internet. So how do you build that trust? The next step after you're doing the social media presence, or you have a social media presence. After that, what is the next step in your opinion?
Yeah, so I want to share a framework that we teach called the MEC framework. Okay, it's going to sound super simple. No one uses it though because they overthink this stuff, right? So we're going to distill it down, and then we can get as specific as we want to get. So MEC, I don't care what social media you're using. I don't care if we're talking about posting content or direct messages. It applies to all the above, right? So ME also applies to email marketing, actually. So the M stands for meet. Okay, so just like in person, you want to meet the person first and grab their attention, right? If you haven't met someone, it's weird to pitch them something, right? Of course, it makes no sense. Duh. Same thing online, right? So that point of meeting, right? On LinkedIn, that's connecting. On Facebook, that's becoming someone's friend, right? Meet first, right? Even if you don't immediately get in the conversation, that point of meet is really important. Now, if your profile sucks on LinkedIn or even on Facebook, if it looks like you're a bot, the meet gets affected. You may never meet them. They may never say, "Oh, I want to accept and be part of this person's world. I want them to be part of my world." And then we have established commonality and curiosity. Okay, so these are really important things to do, right? We do business. Everyone's heard the saying, we do business with people we know, like, and trust. Well, I would say we do business with people who are more likely to trust naturally because we have things in common with them, right? So I always like to tell the story, growing up, my parents, they came from the former Soviet Union. Anytime they needed to hire a contractor in the house, they would look at the newspaper and it was in Russian, and they would find someone from that part of the world. And a lot of the contractors from that part of the world were lazy and terrible, just like, well, I guess that's all contractors, right? Not contractors here. But it goes to show they just felt a level of comfort. It's not like they didn't speak English, right? They just felt a level of comfort because, hey, that person's got a similar name to me. That person maybe has a similar story, similar outlook on life. So that's what they resonated with. So online, we have to establish commonality, right? And you may be thinking to yourself, well, what do I have in common with someone who can be an LP in my deals? Maybe they're a multi-millionaire. I'm not yet. Well, they're human, first of all, right? They may live in the same state as you. They may live in the same country. They may be from some of the same places. They may have some of the same hobbies, right? They may be into some of the same things. They may have a family. Maybe you have a family, right? So there's all these different things that we can do to create commonality, and that creates kind of this immediate rapport, especially if there's multiple streams of commonality, whether it's through a direct message, social media post, on a webinar, whatever the case may be. It's so important to establish that and do it in a kind of genuine way, right? And then, so we talk about establish commonality and curiosity, right? So curiosity is such a powerful thing. It's probably a lot of the people that are listening to this right now. Curiosity is this force, right? That, has us take action and inspires us and, adds value to the world. So giving people something to be curious about, and that means being relevant to them. Right. So that depends who you're talking to, right? We can talk about investor avatars and all that too. I have a very different take on that topic than I would say 99% of people. But, it's like, okay, what's going to be relevant to who you're talking to so that they become more curious, that they want to know more, right? And then the final piece is continue the relationship, okay? You want to extract that person from social media, from online to offline, meaning phone call typically, not as quickly as possible, but when the time is right. So sometimes it takes a little bit of back and forth, multiple touch points. And sometimes, that person sees a post or they see your first message, they're ready to talk, they're ready to connect, right? So, it's being empathetic of that, but we want to take those relationships beyond online so that you have a real relationship with that person. I think a lot of people back in the day when they were raising money, they would just try to build an email list, not talk to people, and then pitch deals. And I think it used to kind of work for some people, but now I think just with the way the climate is in the world and how many people are out there pitching deals, it's so valuable to actually be able to talk to people and have that relationship, right? Even if they don't invest in the next deal, if they're on your list, they're deal ready, they have capital in place. It's one of those powerful things you can have as someone who wants to raise more money.
Great. I love that. So what do you say?
MEC.
Yeah, MEC. Okay, wow. That's good. And then you do have some course or ebook on that, something like that, right?
It's funny. People say ebook. I'll share this with everyone too. It makes me think of Internet Marketing 2014, right? Everyone free ebook. So I don't do ebooks. I wrote a digital book, like I said, a long time ago, on college success. But no, so we have right now we have one basic program, and it's fascinating. It's called Rapid Investor Attraction. So we actually work with people to create a strategic plan around investor attraction. We have modules that show people the how-tos, all the granulars of the strategies, across some of these different platforms and tactics that are available. And then we set up the initial kind of, I call it marketing assets, right? The reason I call it marketing assets is because these things run without you. These are automated systems that establish credibility, build trust, engage people, build curiosity, build relationships. So we do that setup for them and we show them how to leverage these systems for adding more investors, right? So MEC is just part of that, but there's a lot of kind of, we start with the foundations, what are the right ways of thinking, and also busting through. I think there's some myths, and we can talk about a few of these too, around capital raising and investor attraction that a lot of people think are true, but just aren't.
And I think I downloaded your course, and then I did see there was something you're talking about, the lead magnet. And I do see a lot of people have a lead magnet on their websites. Does it really work?
Well, most of them are terrible. And I'll tell you why, because if you just put up a lead magnet, it's just like just putting up a website. You got to get someone there, right? If you just put it up there and hope that somehow online someone will magically come across it and everything will be good, that's just not the way it works, right? So it's all, there's the funnel, and then there's the traffic, right? Getting people there, getting the right eyeballs to download it, digest it, and continue building that relationship. So most people will do that ebook or something like that. My favorite lead magnet, and for those of you wondering what a lead magnet is, just get someone to raise their hand and say, okay, I'm curious to learn more, right? Nothing more, nothing less, but it continues the relationship and it weeds out the people who just don't care, right? So I'm big on lead magnets. My favorite one right now is the investor attraction webinar, right? Because when someone watches a webinar, even if they don't watch it, even if they opt in to watch a webinar, there's more time investment, there's more attention, right? It's usually a more serious person than someone, I'll just look at a cheat sheet, cool. They're just, why not? I could read a cheat sheet about real estate investing, even though they may not be in any position to invest. But a webinar, you can really share your voice, you can overcome objections, you can do so many things in a very concise type of presentation. You can have that running on autopilot. So I think by far the best lead magnet is that investor attraction webinar. Not only is it a lead magnet, it's also a great front door and credibility piece.
Wow, I love that. That's a good tip right there. So earlier you were talking about the LinkedIn profile. You mentioned like most LinkedIn profiles suck. And then I wanted to understand from you, what is a good profile in your opinion? And then we'll talk about your book. But let's talk about the profile, what sticks out more or what looks good in your opinion?
Yeah, well, suck is a very technical term. So it's a good way to evaluate a pro. Does it suck or does it not suck, right? So I think, the very basic thing, and it sounds silly, but a lot of people haven't done this, is having the profile filled in, right? If it's not filled in, the visibility is a lot smaller. LinkedIn has an algorithm, right? So having like basic things filled in, basic headshot, right? Something that has good lighting, something that's relevant. Not just focusing on you in the profile either, focusing on, okay, who do you all want to read it? What's their experience going to be? What's the conversation happening in their mind? What's their way of thinking? What's their perspective, right? So starting to think that way starts to differentiate you, right? Having a catchy headline, having something that's catchy and engages people and giving them clear and compelling next steps, right? So filling out those basic sections, just doing that alone starts to set you apart, right? And not to mention actually leveraging the platform. There's a lot of different things. And then I think the other part of your question, what makes a profile good, right? So it positions you as credible, as having some authority, creates commonality. So we go back to MEC, right? Commonality, curiosity, right? People feel like they know a little bit about you, right? Without overwhelming them and vomiting your story on them, right? Because they don't care about it that much yet. And it gives people a way of continuing the relationship, whether it's going and opting into your webinar, downloading that ebook or whatever you have as your lead magnet, or simply sending you a message or booking a quick call to learn more, right? So those things are some of those foundational things, right? And then, of course, there's more advanced things like having little keywords in there, linking your business page, all these different types of things. Also, I recommend, it's more of a technical thing, if people on LinkedIn, especially if people haven't yet, switch your profile to creator mode. Okay, it just gives you more exposure on anything you do. Okay, so that's a key thing. So I'd say that those are a few of the things. I mean, we could do hours on that piece alone, but I just giving people some basics to start with.
So let's talk about your book. You wrote a book, Disrupting LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So how did you come about that?
Well, contrary to popular belief, I didn't sit in a cave and meditate and then just have it pour out of me. It's not as romantic. It was something that I think it got published in 2017, right? So a little while ago now, right? And we evolve as we create new things. Definitely a different person back then than I am now when I was writing that book. But it came about from, a lot of these concepts that I was using personally on LinkedIn. A lot of the people that we were working with, we're talking about, called it a new way of using LinkedIn. At the time, LinkedIn wasn't as prevalent, not as many people were trying to market there, right? So a lot of people still saw it as a resume platform. So I think it changed the perspective for a lot of folks, right? So it's one of those called an OG, LinkedIn book, right? One of the kind of original ones in the space. So yeah, it's still, I've got on my bookshelf, it's funny, a little while ago, I just, pulled it out, scroll through it, flip through some of the pages, like, okay, this stuff still is very relevant. A lot of the stuff in there is very platform specific, but a lot of it is also timeless. And I'm really big on, sharing things that are timeless and that are going to work 5 years from now, regardless of some of the changes. And also, I talked about some of what I thought at the time were going to be some of the future changes to the platform. And it's sure enough, you're just kind of seeing that path. A lot of that's coming to fruition as well.
So I'm going to ask you this question. When you wrote this book or now, whatever you're doing, so there's a lot of people in the industry doing the similar thing, maybe a little bit different, right? So many people wrote the books on LinkedIn to how to optimize LinkedIn for you. How did you differentiate yourself from the crowd?
Well, differentiation is key, right? So my whole thing, it's a great question. I mean, so one of my big things was like, not only was taking a lot of it offline, actually merging online and offline. That worked really well. Also disrupting LinkedIn was a bit of a different angle, right? It was also more of a direct marketing angle than just posting and hoping, right? Which is, what a lot of people talked about. And then, right now, kind of where we're at with investor attraction, as far as I know, and this you may know someone else. I know there's some great programs out there on raising capital and mentorships and all those amazing things, and shout out to them. But as far as I know, truly in the investor attraction space, meaning teaching people, building out systems with them, showing them, giving them strategies on adding investors specifically who are LPs, passive investors, beyond their current network. As far as I know, there's no one else that specifically specializes in that, right? There's people talk about capital raising, pitching deals. It's a great compliment, but this field of investor attraction, I think it's still very new. And I think there's just so much room when you think about the average passive investor, the person who's got their money on Wall Street. There's such a bridge to gap between people who have alternative investments and the people who've been conditioned by Wall Street, that it's a wonderful opportunity. Even doing a little bit of marketing and doing it effectively, there's so much money to be able to potentially deploy.
So true. And automation is the key in today's world, because we live in the technological world, I would say information technology world, where most things are happening like in autonomous fashion. Not necessarily you have to do one thing at a time, But the question comes here now. Most people say, okay, I have this tool, I have these courses, multiple offerings are out there. But the question still comes, how do I connect with the people who are on the similar wavelength? And I'm using your terminology here.
Yeah, so it comes down to targeting. So there's 3 things on any social media if you want to market on it effectively, right? This is one of those timeless concepts that people are going to want to understand. So there's targeting, messaging, and processing. Okay. Targeting is identifying who's going to see what you're saying, whether it's your post, your direct messages, who's going to see it, right? Getting really specific. If you're running an ad, targeting people that way. So various social media have different ways of doing that. LinkedIn has some powerful tools that you can use without advertising, within Sales Navigator, even some of the free searches where you can really build a specific list and pull a list of people who you want to see your stuff, who you want to connect with, build relationships with, right? So it's talking with the right who, right? And that part of that, we talked about avatars earlier, and we could talk a little bit more about that, but it's getting a little bit more specific. Now, people need to think about, the avatar concept and getting specific in terms of ranges. It's not just one person, it's a range of people, right? So there's some different flavors to it, right? So for example, in our marketing right now, right? So our ideal avatar client is someone who's usually they're doing real estate syndications, maybe a fund. They've already raised a little bit of capital. They've tapped out their friends and family. They know online's the way to go. Maybe they've invested in some systems and not really known how it all works. They don't really have a strategy. Maybe they're already posting a lot of stuff and kind of working hard at it, not really getting results, spending a lot of time. So our ideal client, they want to save time. They want to streamline things. They want the system, and they want to shorten that learning curve, right? So the range of that, and most of them have raised, I would say, less than 10 million over the course of their lifetime. The range of that, and some people that also work with us is more of the fund manager syndicator who's already raised tens of millions, and they're looking to add additional lead sources. They're looking to really scale and put oil on the fire, right? So it's the same person. It's just a range. So for example, if someone's raising capital, right? Let's say, you go pilots, right? We'll just throw out that example, right? So you're targeting pilots on LinkedIn, right? So you maybe that ideal investor for you is a pilot. They've been doing it for at least, let's say, 20 years. They live in a bigger city, and they're also interested, they've shown interest in some of the groups around investing, right? So we know a lot about that person, right? And the range of that maybe could be a newer pilot, right? Or someone who's also in that industry, right? Who's an executive in aviation, let's just say. So it's people who fit within that range. So want to think about it in terms of ranging. So targeting, messaging, processing, right? The reason anyone who's trying to market themselves on social media, the reason it's not working as well, it's usually going to be one of those three things, if not all the above.
So you said posting a lot. Some people are posting a lot and not getting that much engagement. So I wanted to ask you this question that I have seen that too. There's multiple posts on LinkedIn on daily basis that you see. Some are like really engaging, people are liking them or commenting. Some are just like not even getting one like. So is there any specific strategy that somebody needs to follow, that the post has to be certain way so that more people are engaged?
Yeah, there's a whole algorithm to it. It's kind of, they keep it a secret, but there's, and it's constantly changing. But it's actually not, I think your question is great, but I think when people ask themselves that question, it's actually the wrong question, right? So the better question is, okay, how do I reach the right people? Maybe there's alternatives to posting, right? Direct messages are usually faster, right? There's a faster cycle. You can still have that that relationship built, and for a fact whose eyeballs is getting in front of. The platform isn't limiting your reach, or you're not dealing with any of that stuff, right? So when we talk about in our programs the 3 levels of investor attraction, right? It's a little bit complicated to understand, but I'll kind of give you high level version, right? So most people, when they start off, you'd say, okay, I want to go find investors beyond my current network, let's say on social media, online. Okay, so what's the first thing people think to do? I'm going to start posting stuff. Okay, cool. I'm going to have a website. Okay, cool. So to me, that's a level 2 activity, and they're skipping level 1, right? So what are level 1 activities? Having great messaging that stands out, having a funnel, which is an automated system like an investor attraction webinar, okay? Being specific in the strategies, okay, which platforms are you going to tap into first? And then having direct messages going out where you're building relationships with people. Still automate a lot of that stuff, but now you're in control and you're getting some of those faster results, right? So that's the foundation, is level 1. So I always recommend to people, start at that foundation, start at level 1. Then you can add the level 2 stuff. You can add the posts. You can add, going on people's podcasts, right? There's all these different things you can do for level 2. And then level 3 is more, hey, you're going to start your own podcast, your own YouTube channel, you're going to write a book, and all these different things. And when people start at level 2 or 3, those are usually longer term projects. They take up more resources, more bandwidth, and they're not able to implement them effectively. And it's really frustrating. So what I recommend people do is, you don't just have to do level 1 activities, but do level 1 and level 2. And even, like, for example, Robert Kiyosaki, we'll talk about him, right? Because everyone knows Rich Dad, Poor Dad, huge brand. He's obviously raised a lot of money, made a lot of money, right? So even in, if his marketing today, I don't know what he's offering today, I don't follow his stuff, but let's say he was marketing, say he had a deal, right? So what he would probably do is he probably would have an email list, and he would market it to that database. He would have no problem subscribing to that deal, right? But if he also had another offer, if he was doing a seminar, he could still do the level 1 activities. He could have automated systems that sent out messages to people, right? Or that connected with people and built relationships. So, it's stacking these levels. And I think for most people, it's important to kind of look in the mirror and start where you're at and understand you don't need to be really posting at all. If you want to be using social media effectively, you can start level 1 and then stack the post. And if you're not going to be posting consistently, there's no point to even do it, right? If you're going to post once every month and just like, hey, I did something, either I would say if you're going to post, either commit to doing it 3 times a week or don't do it at all, right? At least 3 times a week. And with that said, if that doesn't sound like something you want to do, make sure that you have level one first. A lot of people can attract plenty of investors through direct messages and through some of these other things that are more level one type of activities.
Oh, wow, that's a good one, actually. Now I'm thinking that the highly successful people, I don't see them posting every day. So it's just all the noise, like here at the bottom. So not necessarily maybe getting the similar level of traction.
Yeah, and it also, I think also what it does for like our brain chemicals, we feel good. Someone likes our post, someone comments, we feel special, right? So I think that's why a lot of people do it. And I think the other reason a lot of people do it is they can't think of what else to do, right? So it's like insecurity, like, hey, if I message someone, I don't want to be spammy, I don't want to all these things, and so posting is kind of the I don't want to say the easy way out, but it's a way to not be responsible. It's a way to say, I posted something, no one liked it, this doesn't work, right? And it's such a faulty way of thinking about it. So yeah, I think we need to shift the conversation, right? Around what is real social media marketing for investor attraction, right? Is posting that? It certainly can be a great part of that, but what is the bigger picture, right? And I think we need to reframe that conversation, in the minds of people who want to go out there and raise more money.
Yeah, that's true. I really like that. Actually, when you're direct messaging, you're opening a channel of communication.
Yes.
And a lot of people maybe don't understand that. Thanks for re-emphasizing that. So we're kind of out of time. I know you have tons of knowledge, and I'm not sure how much I can capture in half an hour, but I would like you to share one golden nugget with my audience. It's not like that you didn't share enough, just one quick golden nugget more.
I don't even know there's so many directions we could go, and let's see what a lot of people. So here's one. So with posting, right, I would challenge people, instead of worrying about what to post, if you want to do something with posting, if you don't have a quote unquote big following yet, what you can do this on Facebook, LinkedIn, or both, or other social media, spend 3 minutes a day, set your timer, go to 3 posts on your newsfeed, give them a like and a comment. Okay. It's called 3 by 3 by 3. What that does, it gets you more exposure. It gets you more eyeballs on your profile. It builds relationships, and you don't have to figure out what to post, right? So 3 by 3 by 3. And if you're wondering what to comment, at the most basic level, it's acknowledging the post and then asking a question, right?
Thank you so much. So this brings us to our rapid fire round. I'm going to ask you 5 questions. You're going to answer in 1 word or 1 sentence only.
That's Ready? A lot of pressure. Let's do it.
All right. So what is one of the best skills that you have learned over the years that works for you all the time?
That works all the time?
Mm-hmm.
Thinking.
Thinking? Oh, I love that. That's a skill. That's good. What is the best book that you have read and recommend to my audience?
On what topic?
Any topic.
So many.
That change your mindset maybe, or that change your trajectory. Anything that like really was kind of enlightening for you.
I'll give a shout out. One of my mentors, and he's got a great book called Magician versus Mule. That's a good book.
Oh, thank you. So what is your biggest passion?
Biggest passion? I'd say self-discovery and also discovery of others.
I like that. In 1 word, what does life mean to you?
It's a great question. Creation.
Great. If you got a chance to change something in your life right now, or even your previous life going back, what would that be and why?
Listen, I'm always looking to add more joy, more play, more fun. I think there's a lot of room for that in all of our lives. So continuing to do that, I think, when I was starting out, it was a little serious and stuffy, and now just, being more fun and just connecting and enjoying.
I think that's the key. If you're in the playful mode, you're always successful in whatever you're doing. Thanks for sharing that. How can people reach out to you, Yakov?
Yeah, easiest way to do, of course, I'm on LinkedIn, all the other social media. But if you're listening to this, you want to find out more about working with us, getting some of this done, getting a lot of this set up for you, findmoreinvestors.com/form. That's findmoreinvestors.com/form. And there's going to be a note on there, just say, on how you heard about us. Just say, hey, I heard you on Vinki's podcast. She's awesome. Let's connect, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Yakov. I really enjoyed our conversation today. Thanks for coming to my show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.